Good evening, everyone, and welcome to NGEN Markets training session. So before starting the session, we will wait for a couple of minutes for others to join in. But first, I need to make a special announcement that our CEO, Mr. Debabrata Majumdar, would like to address some important, release for you. So over to you, Dev sir, so that we can address.
Thank you, Umer. Thank you all. Very good evening. We are here to launch the NGEN promo video, which is very interesting. We have taken some efforts to make it as presentable as possible, and I'm sure you would be liking it. And this will make you understand how wonderful the product is and the journey of the product. We have tried to depict all those things in this video. We wanted to launch it today in front of everyone. We are having our journey in India very well, and I'm sure with your support and good wishes, we can have a wonderful year this year. And we look forward to all your suggestions and inputs so that we can make the product more robust and easy to use. So yeah, I would just request Umer to start the promo video. Yeah, and over to Umer. Thank you.
I hope the video was visible to everyone.
Yes, there was sound this time.
Yes. Okay, so we will start with our session right now. The session is today's session is all about portfolio diversification, and I hope my screen is visible to everyone so that we can we can address all the all the things which we are going to discuss today. So if it is not visible and if my sound is not audible to anyone, please let me know in the chat box so that I can address it. So today's topic about portfolio diversification, it's very important to know that what particular type of securities we are holding in our portfolio for any client. So let's say there is a prospective client who has visited you, or who you have actually had a conversation or a touch with. So what what you can do is you can add in a prospective client by using such upload options which we have given here. So these are the I'm repeating this again and again, but this will help you to understand that we have given these options to upload different sets of portfolios from the prospective client, and even for an existing client you can actually add in a CAS PDF. And we have also given one particular tab where you can onboard an ARN and actually analyze existing clients. Here, let's say we add in ISIN from Excel and add in the client directly. So this is our client and we run the portfolio. So within this, as you can see, this portfolio, which you can definitely see, which has been activated, is having certain securities here. So our first sets of analysis for portfolio diversification would be two things. One is correlation analysis and other is positional overlap. So before going ahead with correlation analysis and positional overlap, we should definitely uh, check first correlation analysis. So in this tab, as you can see, so we will see in depth that what is correlation analysis all about. So what correlation does is it actually sees the behavior of each price moment of every single assets and see how correlated are they based on those price moment. So basically, if you can see here that a correlation between Aditya Birla SL Mid Cap and Nippon India Growth Fund is high. So accordingly, you can see that it's high because it's closer to 1. So this number 0.93 is very closer to 1. Whereas you can see there are some other correlations such as Aditya Birla MNC versus Nippon India Pharma, which is farther away from 1, which is closer to 0. So you can see that it is a lower correlation. So essentially in equities, we have generally stated that a lower correlation is between a range of 0.65 to 75, and a higher correlation is between 0.85 to 95 and more than that. So that is where you can actually recognize that the portfolio we hold right now is highly correlated. So they will behave similarly if the if essentially if any one fund has some drawdowns, you will definitely see other funds to be having those drawdown periods as well. So they are behaving in a very very similar way. So how do we actually allocate our resources, particularly just by looking into our stats? Now this is one way to know that we can see that Nippon and Aditya are in a similar category such as mid caps. So in our stats, we can actually see how many types of securities, categories of securities we are holding in our portfolio, so that we do not have to hold too many mid caps or too many sectorals or too many different other funds which are actually giving you a higher correlation, and that is quite risky because it will be it will not be diversified altogether. So what you can do here is you can definitely see that these are the four funds, mid cap funds, and we need to take a call on which fund we should either go for. One thing we can do here is that we can onboard this entire set of funds to actually see the position overlap between them. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click into the compare section, right? And all these funds from the portfolios has been added. So I do understand that if I click on positional overlap, I will definitely see the positional overlap between those mid cap funds. Now, first thing for sure here is that you would like to see the risk profiling. What type of, if we are just looking for these four mid caps, which one should we be removing, to actually make a more diversified approach in the portfolio? So one thing you can do is you can look into the risk versus return tab. Here you can see that based on the if you just talk about only mid caps, we just talk about mid caps here. So let's remove others altogether and we just take a call that which mid cap fund is actually suitable for this particular portfolio. There can be three things. One is risk versus return, where you're going to take a call that which mid cap will actually make sense for a client portfolio. So I can definitely say a DSP mid cap is more suitable altogether against keeping these three other funds. So you can choose it another period to actually backtest the risk versus return tab accordingly, but you can definitely see DSP mid cap is having a consistent return with a particular risk. Similarly, you can also check in rolling analysis. So we had a session with rolling analysis before, and here you can definitely see that DSP mid cap is having the highest average for a period of 1 year. And also if I keep it as absolute and simple returns, that will be the same case for for that particular methodology as well. And even my positive percentage of this particular fund is actually the highest. So for the my call as a my call as a advisor or a reviewer of this particular portfolio is that I should keep DSP mid cap and remove all these three of them. because it doesn't make any sense, because their correlation is very high against each other. So that's how I'm eliminating the risk. And also I'm trying to allocate my resources, all the mid cap resources, into one particular fund. So that is a DSP mid cap fund in this particular case. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to come into my portfolio, edit it up, and I can just remove some of the funds which are there in the mid cap. So this one, and there's Nippon India Growth, there is Aditya Birla SL mid cap, and there is Aditya Birla MNC. So essentially this is what our portfolio is all about. And you can allocate more into DSP mid cap altogether. Let's say we make an allocation of 28%, right? We are still left with some more allocation. Now what we can do here is, you can definitely let's say we run it, right? Let's say we keep it as rescale to 100, and we just run it. We are not going to update it. We just run it for our permutations and combinations purpose, and we look into the correlations again. Now we see another number, which is Franklin India. You can see these are from the same AMCs. You can definitely see that their ratio is quite high, closer to 1. And you can also say that these are highly correlated. And the same thing, if I add them again to the compare, right, these all 5 securities, and if I look into my positional overlap, these funds, 48% of the fund are overlapping with each other: Franklin India Flexi Cap and Franklin India Blue Chip. So my call here is that either I will keep one of them in my portfolio, either I will remove both of them and add in some other blue chip. So I can take a call based on my research in the compare section, and improve the portfolio altogether based on the asset allocation and the diversification purpose. So let's say we have chosen to take one fund into account. So let's say we come into the main list, we remove others, right? And our call is just to just to see these two funds, and to see if which one is making sense based on risk versus return. Right now you can see Franklin India is more towards this side. You can change the dates accordingly to see if the permutations and combinations are working in. And you can see that Flexi Cap is more towards lower risk, higher return side. And similarly you can also see in rolling analysis the same parameters. I'm just running it for a period of, let's say, 2006. You can run it for a longer period, but even if you run it for a shorter period, even if you see that, you will definitely see the average is higher, your positive percentage is actually higher. So for me, actually investing into Franklin India Flexi Cap makes sense, and that's how I can take a call and remove Franklin India Blue Chip from my portfolio. So I can come back into my portfolio again, edit it again, and I can remove Franklin India Blue Chip from my portfolio. And essentially this is the entire this is what our entire portfolio was all about. We had like 7 to 8 securities, and then we just constricted them and made them 4, and they are one and the same, because most of them were correlating with DSP mid cap, and others were correlating with other one was correlating with Franklin India. And this is the problem with many portfolios we have encountered at NGEN. So we do we do remember that there are so many of the clients who have portfolios like 10, 12, 13, 15 portfolios. Now the problem with that is that even if you have like thousands, like let's say 15, 20 portfolios, that will correlate heavily with each other, and that will not make any sense in terms of diversification. So for a diversification purpose, I have made some model portfolios here. They are not essentially truly better portfolios, but these model portfolios are based on my research and my assumption. But you can actually do it yourself. Once I run this portfolio, I can show you. This is a high risk portfolio. uh, it has been given similar asset allocation. There's a reason for that. I'm going to show you the reason why. And I can actually check my correlation, and my correlation is truly low here. Based on equities, you can say that my correlation between Axis Blue Chip and uh, PGM India, which is a mid cap, is different altogether. and you can see this is one of the global equity opportunities fund, PGIM. So I have actually allocated in such a way that my correlations are not higher than 0.85, 0.86. So this is having 15 funds in a portfolio will only make sense when they are very different from each other. When they are like from different geographical area, or maybe fund of funds, or maybe ETFs from for FTSE or something like that, or maybe or maybe you have some PMSs which are actually different, if they have different stock selections, or maybe AIF. Then only it will make sense to have like 10 to 15. Otherwise, having an equity portfolio with certain debt allocation, let's say we have a debt allocation here with a conservative strategy, you can do one and the same by just having 5 to 7 funds in a portfolio. So your essential purpose here is, whenever you look into correlations, your correlation should be lower than 0.80 or 0.85, so that you can actually diversify the portfolio and actually reduce the risk. If the market falls, the risk would be lower altogether, because they will be independent, a bit independent from each other, against when their price momentum are going on from the time today we are making the selections. So that is how this works out for any strategy you work for. We had another question here, that we definitely do not have any model portfolios given to anyone. All you have to do, and you have to allocate yourself with your own research accordingly, and then plan it out, that what type of correlations are you looking for, because correlation is a very subjective number. For equities, a correlation for 0.75 is low. But let's say I take into an example of this client again. Right? Let's say I add in a stock in this portfolio. Now there will be a difference, right? I can add in, let's say, ICICI Bank, and then I can add in Nippon, let's say Sun Pharmaceuticals. So there is a reason for this. I'm adding these stocks. Okay, these has been already added. So I just rescale this to 100 and run this. Now this is essentially a portfolio which I've added 2 securities into a stock. Now what you can do is you can look into the correlations. Now why do I say correlation is very subjective? Because when you look into equity portfolios, equity funds, a correlation of 0.95 is considered high. But this is a comparison between a mutual fund and a mutual fund. But what if you uh, you know uh, compare a stock with a mutual fund? Now if you see a stock which is Sun Pharmaceuticals, it is correlating 0.58 with Nippon India Pharma Fund. I can actually say that's a very high correlation, because only one stock which is behaving similar to Nippon India Pharma. This is how the comparisons can be even with ICICI Bank. Can you see ICICI Bank are correlating highly with some of the blue chips and flexi cap funds, because these are the funds which are having higher allocations for ICICI Bank, because ICICI Bank is one of the the most chosen stock in any large cap or a blue chip portfolio, fund portfolio basically. So that is the reason they are having some correlations. That's why a correlation can be very subjective when you are actually comparing it with the different asset classes. If I add in other asset class, such as maybe I can add in some commodities. Okay, so let's say we add in crude oil. So now this crude oil data is not updated, but still you can see something insightful from this. Uh, if I add in a commodity, you can actually correlate it with other assets. And now you can see crude oil is not, correlating with anyone, any single asset into this. And similarly, I can add in a silver as well, or maybe gold. So let's say I'm adding gold again, right? So gold is added and silver is added. So these are all old data, but still once I run this, you can see some correlations between the commodities. and the correlation is in such a way that you can see gold and silver is having a correlation. Because these are all precious metals which we are looking into. So that's how correlation, do not look into the underlying assets of any fund. It does not take into that account. It only takes into the price momentum and the daily returns which has been generated through those assets. And this doesn't mean that if the correlation between Franklin India and blue chip and Flexi is very high, doesn't mean that they will give you same returns or similar returns. Because one of them might be more volatile, and one of them might be lesser volatile. And there is as you have already known that blue chip fund is actually more volatile, and Franklin Flexi Cap is lesser volatile. So accordingly, they are behaving in the case, if they fall, both of them fall together. So but Flexi won't fall that much, but blue chip might fall too much. And that is the case here. When you compare here in the risk versus return, you will definitely see, if there is a drawdown in the market, they are correlated. Definitely they are correlated, even if they generate different sets of returns. But one of them will fall more than others if there is a drawdown which occurs in the market, in the large cap segment, or in the economy. Or if there is a up market, definitely then might be that blue chip might outperform. So that is the reason, you might need to check, because volatility, the annualized risk, which is standard deviation, is upside and downside both. So that's why you have to consider that whenever you take into account risk versus return. And secondly, whenever you look into the portfolios, you look into a way that the correlations should be, if they are between the two assets. So which are those assets? Are they mutual funds? Then in mutual funds, the numbers should be between 0.75, 0.76 is a good correlation, which makes you a diversified approach. But other than that, if you add in, let's say, equity portfolios, I'm just talking about equity portfolio just for giving you a brief example as to how equity portfolios work out. So when we compare mutual fund with mutual fund, there is a different correlation. When we compare mutual fund with a stock, there is a different correlation. But what if when we compare a stock with a stock, then you will see the correlations such as this. You will never see a correlation such as like 0.97 or 0.95. The correlation here, you know, to if you can see, some of them, like let's say Bank of India, right? A Bank of India and ICICI Bank, is, you can say this number is a higher correlation based on other correlations altogether. So for equities, the correlations work out, the numberings are subjective for equity to equity. So that is one one thing to be always be careful about when you look into correlation, because there is no set of high correlation or a low correlation, because assets might be different in any other portfolio altogether. That's how the correlation works out. And we have also added one more function, is that you can also add all the stocks to compare now. So we have updated our system that you can actually add these all stocks into the compare section, and you can actually compare risk versus return for all the stocks in one place. So that's very, very wonderful to see, and very, very useful altogether if I want to compare these all stocks in one place. But let's talk about mutual funds again. Let's come to our main topic, is positional overlap. I've shown you one of my model portfolio here, a strategy which I've showed you. This is my simple strategy. I have not taken too much of my effort. I've made a proper correlation. I've maintained that my performances are beating the benchmark. This is a very high volatile strategy according to me. So I want to improve this asset allocations altogether, so that I can actually certainly make better changes in the asset allocation, because these are equally allocated. So can I improve this portfolio altogether? To improve it, there are two ways. One is a manual way. A manual way is to actually determine and just type in every point of the time, like let's say 25, and rescale it and run it. That is a manual way, and that will take me like hundreds of permutations, combinations, to actually find a better performance, right? But there is another way, which is which is a way of improve portfolio. So let's load in this particular portfolio again, and let's equally allocate it, and let's run this portfolio. So once you run this portfolio with improved portfolio, you will see 6 sets of models. So all these 6 models are shown here. So in this 6 models, there is another model which is equal weightages. We will talk about it later. But as of now, we have 6 sets of models. One model is a ranking model, another one is a value model, and then we have subsets which shows you rank returns, minimum vol, rank sharp. So now how does this signifies and how does that help you? uh, what rank return does is that it allocates to that particular fund or a security in your portfolio which is contributing highly towards the returns. Only this column. So accordingly, this is according to the weightages. Where you give a weightage to the highest contributing fund, and then you give the second weightage to the second rank to the second one, which is PGM India mid cap, and then the list goes on. So accordingly, you can see that quant tax plan in this particular case should be allocated higher than the others. But you can, what you can do is you can save this, right? And once you save it, an optimized version of this risky portfolio which you are suggesting to your client will be updated in the system. And then you can actually compare your strategy with the original to see if that particular strategy you have worked out is working pretty well or not. Now what I'm doing here is that yes, we have given you a portfolio improve function, right? We have given this optimized version which is updated, but you can yourself come here in the edit and save and maybe give some more tweakings to it, right? A tweaking so that you can actually make a better approach. So let's say I do not want to give too much allocation to quant, so I can make it 33, right? And I can, the second best security is PGM India, so I can just make it like a 18. So now I can allocate better to other funds which are which can get some more allocation. So let's say this, I can just give it to 17, and then the 10 is left. So let's say I give it to this is 13, and the last will be 4. So let's say this is 5. So that is my entire this is just my manual intervention to just tweak some of the things here, and I can update it, or maybe I can run it or save as new, so to test my strategies again and again. Once I update this thing, right, I can run it out and I can see what is my performances based on the allocations I've chosen. So yeah, so I can see that my annual return over benchmark is actually clearly higher than it was before. And to test that hypothesis you have done, all you have to do is just keep your strategy which was with equal weightages here, and keep another strategy which you have with your optimized one, this one, and that strategy, if it is working pretty well, you can say that that the strategy you have used is actually generating 1.78% higher annual return difference against the original. So that is how you can use portfolio improve. Portfolio improve is a very powerful function which help you to allocate based on ranking model. And there is another model which is a value model as well. So let's talk about value model as well. So we will talk about a value model is an approach. You have seen my tweakings to make it more balanced, right? We have given another set of model which will help you to you don't have to do these tweakings all together. All you have to do is click on improve, right? And as you see the ranking model, it is a very concentrated approach. One particular securities will be highly allocated, so you can actually see that into the value model as well. So let's run it. So here you can see that I'm getting a annual return difference, annual return against the original as 19.15 with a high allocation to quant tax plan. Now this is very volatile fund, I know that. So accordingly, you can take a call that you do not want too much of an allocation into this particular fund. And that's what the value model has done. It takes into account the return as it is, and then actually considers it into the asset allocation. So you can see here that the highest has been allocated to quant tax plan with return value, but in a lower allocation, not 43.80, not too much. So here you can actually get a more balanced approach rather than a very concentrated approach. It just generally means that this particular fund is 50% of the portfolio. If you increase just 5% or 7% allocation, your portfolio will be just half of the quant tax plan that you do not want altogether. So that's why a value model comes in. uh, yeah. So for a value model, let me repeat it again. I got a message here. For a value model, uh, as you can see, let's compare it with the ranking model. A ranking model is just a concentrated approach where one particular security, either a mutual fund, either a stock, can be highly allocated. Whereas in a value model, those securities won't be highly allocated. They will be balanced because they take into account return as it is, and then they get rescaled to 100. So once they get rescaled, you can see that quant tax plan is actually having a high allocation similar to the ranking model, right? You can also see the second rank one is the same as PGM India here. So what it has done is it has given more allocations to those which are in the second, third, and other ranks, so that you can get a more of a balanced approach altogether, and your return set is actually good enough, and you have a lesser volatility, I mean, compared to the ranking returns. So this model is all about what would be suitable for you and your clients. So it is all on you that which type of model would you like to choose. Now this is just by about ranking returns and rank return value. Similar concepts apply to minimum vol, rank sharp, and minimum vol value and sharp value.
Umer, can I
This is
interrupt
highly
in that in a minute? What is the base in return value and what is the base in rank returns?
so give us a minute. We will complete that and we will start with FAQ
Okay,
Q&A sessions.
done.
Yes. So that's how this works out in ranking and value model. And here you can see the equal weightages as well. Now equal weightages works out when you have different sets of allocations against the original. So that's how you can actually compare 7 models in one place, and then choose one of the model which will be suitable for the for the asset allocation which you would like to choose. This is one strategy which I am also personally using whenever I am trying to allocate any particular securities in a portfolio. First, what would I do is I would take equal allocations, and then I would improve the portfolio. So there are two ways. You can do a manual approach. Other way is a time saving approach, is an improved portfolio which will save your time drastically, so that you don't have to guess which security should you allocate higher and which should you allocate lower. And this also works out for a, even if you add in a stock. So let's say you have added ICICI Bank. So it's just randomly I'm adding one stock here, right? And you just rescale it and you run it based on the return, volatility, and the Sharpe ratio. The model will show you which securities you should allocate. So this is not just confined or on constricted only towards mutual funds. Whichever security you add, a stock, a custom security, or even a mutual fund, that will show you the allocations accordingly. So here in this case, now instead of PGIM India mid cap, the second allocation should be ICICI Bank Limited, and that's only due to the its contribution towards return in the portfolio because of this rank and returns. And I'm just talking about rank returns, but it applies similarly for minimum vol. Any security which is more lesser volatile will be actually allocated higher. You can see that HDFC balance advantage is lesser volatile in this portfolio. That's why it is allocated, higher. Then that is Axis Blue Chip is the second one. And in the same case for rank sharp, the higher is quant tax plan, which is giving you a higher sharp ratio. So that is how this works out. And a value model is more of a more of a balanced approach, where your asset allocation is not very high towards one security, such as like 40%, 50%, or 35%. Here you can see, a very balanced approach here. And here we have given a value model amplifier. Now, why this is given? Because a value model amplifier will help you to allocate more towards those higher, contributing securities. Let's say I keep it at as 2 and rerun it. Now what this value model will do is it will, allocate highly towards, definitely quant tax plan, and then ICICI Bank, and then it comes again with Axis. So you can see that ICICI is more allocated now, quant is more allocated now, and then PJM is more allocated now. And if I make it 3, this is an amplifier which amplifies the allocation and makes it more concentrated. So if you make a concentration higher, it will become more and more closer to a ranking model, closer, more concentrated altogether. So let's say I make it 3 and rerun it. It might have allocation more than 35 or 36% for a quant fund. And uh, that is how this works out for a value model amplifier. So let us run this, and let us show you how this works out. You can see this is more than 35. Before it was 30, and prior to that it was just lesser than 25 or 25. So that is how even ICICI Bank is more allocated now, and HDFC Balance Advantage is very lowly allocated. But you can see the return value is actually increased a lot, but subsequently the volatility as well. That is the reason, you have to be careful when you use a value model amplifier, but because it can give you a very good set of return, but it might increase your volatility as well. So basically you're actually increasing the risk of the portfolio. You're taking more risk for more return. That's it. Our main purpose here is to take risk based up, to take a risk, according to the return. So we need to take lesser risk to have better returns, so that we can generate a better sharp ratio. And in this case, rank sharp and sharp value is actually having a very good, sharp ratio. But you can see the risk is high, but the return is also high. And that's why we are taking particularly a better risk according to the returns. But the only problem here is that it is, very, very much allocated towards quant tax plan. And that is like 60% of the portfolio is quant tax plan. So that's why you should be, I'm always, recommending everyone to always be careful when you use a value model amplifier till 5. It is recommended you can go 1, 2, and 3, but a 5 can give you a very skewed result. And that will, because that is a mathematically driven model. This is not a suggestion, or this is not a suggestion by any human. This is mathematically driven to show you what sets of possibilities, allocation if you have given this allocation, you could have had this particular set of return and this set of volatility with this sharp ratio. So that is what all about allocations and portfolio diversification and portfolio improve all about. And that's how you can use these certain tools to effectively diversify any such portfolio you encounter. Even for a client, if you have, all you have to do is click on this, copy this to the portfolio section, and then add it into the portfolio section, and then do the steps which we have shown to you. And that is how this works out. So that is it for the today's session. We can start with our Q&A. We have Arunab sir on board as well, and Karthik sir, I think you had a question, so we can start addressing first with yours. So can you please unmute yourself, and then we can address them.
Yeah, thank you, Umir. Umir, the 6 models which you showed, it broadly categorized into ranking models and value models. Can you explain that, as you said, ranking is concentrated on the rank-wise return, Means I'm not clear with what value and ranking means.
Yeah, hi, this is Arunab. Can you hear me?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, sure. So the reason that ranking models are more concentrated versus value models, which are more balanced, is simply because the input in the case of the ranking models is the actual rank. So if you look at this, and by rank, I mean like, who's first, who's second, who's third. So in what we're looking at right now, Parag Parikh Flexi Cap happens to be ranked number one as
Correct.
far as returns are concerned, right? So it gets a rank of one. Now, the rank of two is, let's see what, Invesco India Mid Cap. That's rank.
Your voice is not audible.
Yes, so let me just take it forward. I think there might be some network issues. Uh, just give me a second.
So because of that, what happens is even if Parag Parikh happens to have won because of the 0.5% difference, it still came first. So it gets a much higher weight compared to the one that came second. So you get more concentration on whoever's come first, regardless of by how much, right?
Correct.
In the value model, it actually does consider by how much did Parag Parikh beat Invesco. And you can see actually here, the two numbers are 27.9 and 23.8. So it's not by that much, but you can see they are much closer to each other. So the value model in a sense is much more tied to reality in terms of what the funds are actually delivering. But having said that, there is enough model papers out there which say that ranking models have proven to be very effective over time, which is why they should not be discarded for sure. Obviously, there is a problem of diversification here because there is less balance compared to value models. So this is something that you can make a decision, based on the kind of clients you have. Some may not mind having 40-50% in one fund for a while. Others may not want to do that at all. So that's the main reason why the rank returns, the ranking models are more concentrated, while the value models are more balanced.
So we can say aggressive, they would prefer ranking, and for a conservative or moderate PB value models would be preferred.
Exactly. And you will see, generally speaking, if you compare rank returns to returns value, which are similar things but just different models,
and almost 1% difference is there.
Yeah, and sometimes you'll find a bigger difference. You'll get a lot more return with the ranking model, and even the Sharpe ratio will be higher, in which case it's actually generating more return for the same amount of risk also. So one will be reasonably tempted to select that, but again, it depends. If you do have constraints and if your client is not very aggressive in nature, then you probably shouldn't suggest a ranking model.
Correct. And Arunabji, and this minimum volume means minimum standard deviation in the ranking part and minimum volume in value wise.
Yeah.
What is that difference?
So minimum vol in both cases refers to volatility or standard deviation. So in this case, it's actually doing exactly what it does for returns, but opposite. Why? Because returns, we want them to be as high as possible. But in the case of vol, which is either volatility or standard deviation, we want them to be as low as possible. So in this case, when you look at the min vol model for ranking, you will see Aditya Birla Sun Life Saving Fund has the highest weight because obviously it came first, 43.8%, because it must be the lowest volatility fund out of these five. But when you look at the min vol answer for value models, you're getting a big difference here. Now, the reason for that huge difference is it's almost counterintuitive. But the reason for this is because the Aditya Birla Sun Life Savings Fund volatility is much, much, much lower than the volatility of the other four.
That makes sense. That and equity difference.
Yes. So if you put a couple of liquid funds here, you will see suddenly the min-vol model will start allocating huge amounts to the liquid fund because it's saying you told me to minimize volatility. So that's what I'm doing.
Okay. Right. So whenever we are discussing with the customers, our first column and the fourth column would be more relevant in
That's
terms
right.
of his appetite, risk appetite.
That's right. And I would also say, please consider the third and the sixth also, which are based on rank, sorry, sharp, because
Right.
that may be a much more balanced way of looking at things. So sometimes you might get a little lower sharp ratio, but looking at sharp ratio is not a bad idea instead of just looking at returns.
Yeah, risk adjust.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
No.
Anyway, the equal weights are never preferred, right?
Well,
Just
yeah, they're of course they're obviously not preferred, but it's a very good sense check because you might have designed a portfolio or the client may have designed a portfolio. This is sometimes can be very, very useful in client discussions because if you find that equal weights is giving you better performance than what you currently have, then that is a very surprising thing because you can say, look, instead of what you're holding, if you're just given same weights to everything, so like a no-brain solution basically,
correct.
Even that would have done better than what you're doing. So that's a pretty good argument to make, right? In order to tell them to change their portfolio because their portfolio is currently so bad that it's even worse than equal weighted.
If other way around, we can show what the alpha as an advisor we have generated or not generated.
Yes, definitely. If for that, it's even more useful. You can say that I am showing you a portfolio that is adding this much more sharp ratio or return to a base case scenario where if you just close your eyes and put all your funds equally into these 5 funds, I am adding this much value, 12.25, but I'm giving you 14.3.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure. There was another question on the chat by Mr. Abhay Sinha saying, is it possible to check factor-based risks? Risk exposure. So here, I mean, technically you can do it. We don't have an automatic way to do it, but one thing we could suggest is there is a custom security section here where you could add, like a representative price of inflation or even just interest rates or GDPs. And then add them to the portfolio just so that you can look at the correlation matrix. You can, by the way, you don't have to do it in the portfolio section all the time. You can even do it in the compare section. It'll be a little easier because in the compare section, you can just add a bunch of funds. And then once you have added a custom securities, you can add them here. And then you can go to the correlation matrix and basically see, that custom security, whatever that is, there could be anything. How does that correlate to your, individual models or your portfolio's return, etc.? Are there any other questions? Okay, if there are no more, I think we can close off for today.
Okay, so thank you so much everyone for attending the session today. So as everyone have seen our promo, which was released by our MD CEO, we would be releasing that in YouTube as well, and we would be releasing some of the new, functionality videos soon enough to help you understand the tool and help you with all the, all the intricate details. What platform is, can actually help you in your, research and in reviewing the portfolios as well. So thank you so much again and have a nice weekend. So we will meet again next Friday tentatively 4 o'clock. So thank you.